Great. I'm ready.
Brilliant. So thank you all very much, everyone, for joining us again this Wednesday. So this Wednesday, we're going to bring you to Scotland, and we have three fantastic people you're going to meet in Scotland. And then, as you all know as well, one area we've really been trying to promote strongly is Devon, Cornwall and Somerset. You know, not just England is more about London and getting people further afield and out and enjoy the fantastic countryside and the fantastic coastline as well. So we will also be meeting Peter down in Devon. So we're going to kick off with John, who owns a fantastic property. And Gio, if you want to show the map and then maybe show where John's property is, and also then later we will be meeting Vicky and Lord Bruce, and they're also in Scotland. So you've got Aluinn and then Broomhall. So if you can just...
Can you see my screen?
We can see it.
Perfect. So first we're going to go to John here in Dunallen in Perthshire. And then after we're going to go to Broomhall, which is just across here at the bridge here. And just you can get a feel of, you know, Edinburgh and Glasgow and how far they are and how easy it is. And I'm just going to zoom out so you get an idea of all of Scotland. So, you know, the Highlands being over here. So it's really easy. Either of these properties are really great locations for exploring all of Scotland and close to airports as well. So great options there.
Fantastic. So over to you, John, and you can tell us all about Dunallen. And by the way, tell us what the name means, because I'm assuming that in Scottish it's similar. Is it like all in Ireland for beautiful, in Irish for beautiful?
It's not actually, and Dunallen stands for Hilltop Fort.
Okay, so do the same as fort in Irish, but its hilltop is, okay, interesting.
Correct, yes. So it's situated on an elevated site overlooking the town of Aberfeldy. Hence the name Dunallen. And so thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to speak here today, and great to connect with so many people on this call. And I'd like to talk to you today about Dunallen, and it's a property which my wife and I own. You can probably tell by the accent I'm not Scottish, I'm actually Irish, and I'm in lockdown in Ireland at the moment, but because Dunallen is closed at the moment, but hopefully opening quite soon. So let me just take you through. So I'd like, first of all, to introduce you to Susie, who's actually my wife, and she's also the architect and designer of Dunallen. So very much instrumental in everything which we have in Dunallen. And when Susie and I bought this property around 4 years ago, we started off on the journey, and we kind of said to ourselves, what do we really want to achieve in this renovation? And we both agreed that we wanted to set out and create something quite special, and to make sure that no matter who came to Dunallen, no matter where they were in the world, and no matter what culture or how wealthy they were, they would come to Dunallen and say, yeah, this is a pretty cool place. And so that was our central vision as we carry out the renovations. We've been open 2 years now, and thankfully we've started to get a good name on the marketplace. So as we shared earlier, you can see where Aberfeldy is, and Dunallen is a 9-bedroom property, 9-bedroom property, all with ensuite bathrooms, situated on an elevated site overlooking the town of Aberfeldy, which is around an hour and a half from Glasgow and Edinburgh airports. So quite accessible, and as you can see from the red dot, you know, very centrally located in Scotland, with easy access to the likes of St Andrews, up north over to the west coast, but also Gleneagles is around 40-45 minutes away, so quite accessible. And you know, people always ask us, well, what's so different about Dunallen compared to lots of other properties in Scotland? What's really is our USP? And I think there's probably 3 elements to talk about, and I'll share with you today. We would think that we have, and like to believe that we have, world-class interiors and detailing and finishings within the house. We have a superb food offering within Dunallen. And thirdly, we got really unique, tailored Highland experiences, and that we create for our guests who stay with us. So those three elements gathered together, set in a stunning location in a great part of Scotland. And that really together is our USP. So this is the front door into the house. As I mentioned, we're very much a design-led exclusive use venue. The house sleeps 18 in total. And we're also currently renovating the lodge, which will have 4 more double bedrooms, all en suite. And that is opening in May time. So in total, across the estate, we'll have 26 people that we can host. The nice thing about Dunallen is situation. It is just a short walking distance into town, probably 700 yards into town, you know, to the nearest pub, restaurant. A lot of places in Scotland are maybe fabulous, but they're like a half an hour drive from the nearest pub or restaurant. So one of the things which really attracted us to Dunallen was the fact that it has that connection to the town. And Aberfeldy, if you don't know, it's a lovely, typical Highland town with lots of stone buildings. It's kind of quite a kind of an arty feel to the town, with lots of galleries and coffee shops and bookshops. It actually has a bookshop in an old converted watermill, which is rated as one of the top 50 bookshops in the world. And so a really unique town. One point just to mention as well, that we've a big focus on sustainability, and we've just submitted our application for a gold award for the Green Tourism Association. So everything we do in the house, and we try to make it as sustainably as possible, from, you know, recharging of electric cars in our car parking, from recycling, and really try to, with all the partners that we have, that they have the same values and behaviours that we have in really making Dunallen as green as possible. I mentioned earlier about the design, and I'm going to share some pictures and some photographs of the house as we go through, to really give you a sense of the atmosphere within the house. And this is the central staircase entrance area as you walk into the house. We were very brave and painted it a very dark grey colour, and which changes throughout based on the skylight and the light coming in from above. Everybody says it's a really dark, kind of spooky, kind of really Scottish kind of atmosphere with a roaring fire as you enter the house. And from that dark space throughout all the other rooms, we made those very bright, big windows, lots of light, lots of space. And as I mentioned earlier, our strategy as we opened the property was really not for us to say that the house is fabulous, but actually having other people say that the interiors and finishings are fabulous. So we reached out to a lot of interior design and architectural magazines across Europe, and a lot of them picked up on our story, you know, and had some great reviews, some great 15, 16-page reviews in Elle Decoration and Elle Decoration UK and in Spain, publications like Residence in Netherlands and Living in Italy, Living Interiors in Ireland. And very much, you know, to get featured in magazines like this, you really have to be a cut above the rest and really have a really strong design feature. And that's kind of we set it out. So it's good that other third-party publications endorse our product. And just going to share some photographs with you as we go through. This is the main lounge space, and you can see out here we've got an elevated position with great views out onto the landscape from here. And then as we go through, you know, this is the sitting room. The dog is not included as a guest of the photographer who took this picture, but you get a sense of the atmosphere within the house and the interiors. And again, the sitting room has a nice big roaring open fire, a lovely space to relax and take it easy. Our dining space is quite special. It's the table that we have here is 5.5 meters long, and we got it specially designed. Susie designed it, and we got it made up in Black Isle in northern Scotland. It's actually a single piece of poured bronze. So it is actually, we found out, the longest piece of poured bronze as a table in the world. So the guy made the cast and he poured the bronze, and we quickly ran up to the Black Isle to check it. And we got another company to make the oak wood top. So it really is the centerpiece of the house. It's where friends and family come together to enjoy some great food, some great time together. And you can see with very contemporary lighting, which is very directional in the evening time. So it creates a really strong atmosphere and mood within the house. Every booking that with Dunallen, it automatically comes with breakfast every morning, a private butler throughout your stay, housekeeping and turn down service every evening as well. A little bit about the food, which I mentioned is one of our unique selling points. And we partnered with a local company called Ballintaggart Farm, which made the Michelin Guide last year and also this year. They are exclusive partners at Dunallen, and they're a young couple that came up from London, 2 chefs around 3 or 4 years ago, started off business there and really expanded and have a very strong external catering arm, which they work with us in Dunallen. The food is all local, seasonal, and it's really, really serviced some fantastic people at Dunallen. And they have a range of options. So all catering is catered for, whether it's vegan or whether it's vegetarian. We can cater and tailor our menus to the exacting needs of our customers. We do a fantastic Taste of the Highlands 5-course tasting menu, which is really, kind of a gala dinner to maybe at the last evening of a stay at Dunallen. The chef comes out after each meal to introduce the dish and where it's from, and we do a lot of pairing of wine as well within that. We also do a really nice barbecue on the terrace, and we very much encourage guests, if they want to go out to dinner, of course, they can walk into town, or maybe a special occasion, they could go over to Gleneagles, the only 2-star Michelin restaurant in Scotland. The Andy Furley restaurant is quite a nice detour as well. As I mentioned, with the kitchen is there for people's use. Some guests like to cook, so they're more than happy to use our kitchen as often as they would like. A little bit about the bedrooms. As I said, 9 bedrooms, all en suite, and all the bedrooms are individually designed and detailed. And quite often in large houses, you might have 2 or 3 like Dana rooms, fantastic, but all the others are the turkeys in the back, which nobody really wants to stay in. I'm glad to say that Dunallen has got 9 bedrooms, all individually designed, all good size, and all have their own ensuite. And most importantly, everything works, and everything works extremely well. The expectations of our customers is that they can have a hot shower or a hot bath any time of the day, and things works really well. We also have a steam room in one of the ensuites as well, which is quite a nice feature. And a couple of photographs of the interiors of some of the bedrooms. Very contemporary design and very modern in its style in an old Victorian setting. And some of the bathrooms, again, all very it's all in the detail within Dunallen. You see here in one of the bedrooms we have a Japanese ufuru soaking bath, which guests can just sit in and maybe read the paper and enjoy the views. We're lucky enough within Dunallen, we've got 5.5 acres of land. And we've taken the decision that we have quite mature gardens around the house, but the rest of the land we've decided to let it go wild and let nature take its course. That has resulted in a lot of actually wildlife and some deer, obviously some owls and hares, etc., which have come to live there, which is quite nice. And we very much like the fact that we have this private space, but it's still on the edge of Aberfeldy, walking distance into town. A nice little feature that we have, we've a wood-fired cedar hot tub situated in the woods right beside the house. We've created a lovely walkway through the woods, which is lit up at nighttime, and to have this space. So really popular space for guests to hang out in the evening time, with the butler delivering maybe some drinks and some G&Ts to them as they enjoy the views. And then I mentioned earlier about Dunallen. This is the location of them setting up and to serve out some barbecue. You can see the setting where it is and the overall atmosphere that we have. We're lucky enough with the location of Dunallen, as I mentioned, we really encourage guests to leave the cars behind. If they come for 3 or 4 days, they really don't need to get into their car. There's so many within walking distance, so many places to see and look. This is actually the famous the Burks of Aberfeldy. It's a famous waterfall made famous by Robert Burns, the poem, The Burks of Aberfeldy, literally just a 5-7 minute walk from Dunallen. Just a really stunning location on the edge of Aberfeldy. This is Loch Tay, which is just up the road from us. And this is actually a drone shot just taken there last summer. And Dunallen is just to the left. We can actually see the River Tay from the house. And this is the Mighty Tay, it's called, all the way over to Shilarlene. And some great walks along the river into the valley as well. So you can see get a feel of the local landscape that we have around Dunallen. The third thing I mentioned at the beginning of the call about our USP is our unique tailored Highland experiences that we put together for guests. And we're quite lucky that Aberfeldy has its own Dewar's whiskey distillery in the town. And we're just a short distance and walk to Aberfeldy distillery. And we've teamed up with them and offer some evening private tours of the distillery. And we actually end up in what's called the secret bar, which is actually not open to the public, but we've got access to it with guests of Dunallen. And we do some rare whiskey tasting in there, real kind of speakeasy kind of space. And so really quite magical within the distillery. Also, just to give you a quick feel of some of the other unique experiences that we tailor within Dunallen, and this is the Crannog on Loch Tay, just 4 or 5 miles away. We have a fabulous event in the evening time for guests where they come and looked after in a private event with local storytelling, live music, a big open fire in the middle of the Crannog, and whiskey tasting, and just great crack overall. Very much looked after at the team of the Crannog. It's a really local, very kind of special experience. Actually, one family that we had staying with us for 2 weeks last summer from Hong Kong, they tried every one of our activities throughout the 2 weeks. But the family, and especially the children, absolutely love the Crannog more than anything else. So it's really quite unique to the area of Aberfeldy. And we also team with a company called Highland Safari, which arrive on 4x4s defenders at the door of Dunallen and take guests right up into the hills, off-grid, offline, and really to explore the wild landscapes around Aberfeldy. So really quite special there, and some great guides and some local stories to tell. Another thing which we do with a partner of us is we do a traditional Highland Poland picnic and falconing display. And this is in a valley close to Aberfeldy. Really, again, off-grid, really kind of like disconnecting from the pressures of the world. And the feedback we get from guests is this is really unique, and they actually love it. And if you really want to push the boat out, and we have a really nice one day excursion over to the Isle of Skye by helicopter. And we do this with one of our partners, and we did it with 2 of our guests last summer. And so basically to take off from Dunallen over to the Isle of Skye, our partner has unique landing sites in the Isle of Skye and near the ferry pools, but also the Three Chimneys 2-star Michelin restaurant for lunch, and then back via the Harry Potter viaduct. And we actually timed it quite perfectly last summer that they were flying above as the steam engine was going across the viaduct. So quite a photogenic opportunity for guests. But, you know, I know this is probably not for everybody, but for that special experience, the guests really enjoyed it.
John, I'm going to have to speed you up there because we have 2 other presenters.
Okay, perfect.
Everything is amazing, so keep on going, but very faster.
This is my final slide, just to say thank you very much, and very much like to open it up to any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, I'm going to ask some questions, but can you answer them very briefly? And then we're going to go on to Vicky and to Lord Bruce. We normally rent it out for a week or 5 days, etc. Do you have a minimum night stay as such?
And yes, we do. We have a 3-night minimum stay.
If people want to stay for 2 nights, though, they can just pay for 3, can't they?
That's correct, yes.
And if they want to stay for 1 night, they can pay for 3. So there really
Correct.
isn't a minimum once you're willing to pay for it.
Absolutely.
And then you don't have Saturday, just someone asked there, is it only for Saturdays? It's whatever day they want to arrive, subject to availability.
So total flexibility in relation to when to stay.
Brilliant. And then we've covered the golf. We gave all the information on that. And there was one other question that was there. About the table. The top is wood. Is it that iron based?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The whole structure of the table is made of bronze, and the top of it is an oak top.
Fantastic. So I think I've covered everything there. Just to say, we've almost got 200 people in the meeting, which is great. So thanks a million, John, but stay with us so that people can ask questions at the end. So now, Gio, we're going to go and we're going to meet Vicky and Lord Bruce. And we're going to see what experiences can be offered for hosting, for dinners, lunches, and other experiences as well in that area in Scotland. In fact, over a large area of Scotland. So Vicky and Lord Bruce, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. Can you hear us okay?
We can hear you perfectly, and thank you very much for joining us.
Great. I'd like to start by actually saying I've stayed at Aluinn and it's absolutely gorgeous. So John is a superb host, and I couldn't recommend it more to you.
I know, because we went there when we were on our last it was year before last, I think, when we all visited, and he's actually a cousin of Rachel in our office.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's a connection as well. That's how we found out about it, but it truly is a fantastic gem.
Yeah, it's such a superb place to go, and we're a completely different proposition. We don't have accommodation here. We're an exclusive use venue for small and private functions, and the house, which Charles will tell you about the history, it's incredibly versatile, and it's a family home. So we do lots of things here, such as everybody loves falconry. We do whiskey tastings, obviously lunches, brunches, dinners, you name it. Storytelling. The house has got a beautiful sort of vibe about it, a real mixture of elegance and comfort, because it is a working family home, as it were. My parents-in-law actually live here, so there's a birthday party going on outside the window, a social distancing birthday party. So we managed to find that nice balance for guests who feel very much as though they're coming into the family home and they're not just experiencing something that's a bit sort of commercial and dry, with the history and the sophistication of the house. So it's maybe hand over to Charles to say a little bit about the history of the house.
Vicky, I've got a video as well. Do you want to show the video first so we can get?
Yes, I forgot about the video. Yes.
Come back to you. Just be a second, just because it's amazing. So.
Broomhall's a really fascinating house. To me, what makes Broomhall a really unique place is a particular relationship to the kind of British imperial adventure throughout, in particular, the 19th century. It's an extraordinary document and recollection of that period of history.
We're here today for the first ever primary school MUN conference. We think this is like a fabulous location for it. It's really like prestigious, and I think it really reflects, the importance of the United Nations and what the children are doing. And I think it's a great experience for them too.
The thing I love most about Broomhall is that it's versatile. Once you're here, it's like a family home, and it's open to all sorts of activities that you never thought possible when you first walked in.
That's lovely. It's a great introduction.
I just realised it was filmed in 2017, so you can't see the new bridge across the river, the Queensferry crossing. So it's already rather dated. We're going to have to refilm it. But it gives a snapshot of what we can offer. What people are most interested in the house is really the extent of the history tours that we can give. I mean, some objects in the house are 4,000 years old.
Wow.
Not the tartan suit behind me, although that's pretty ancient. That dates from 1784. It belonged to a man who discovered the River Nile, the source of the River Nile. So the family, if you like, spread out all over the world.
I'm sorry, who was that? That wasn't Richard Speck, was it?
James Bruce of Kinnaird. He discovered the source of the Nile 250 years ago, last November.
Wow.
To get to Ethiopia to retrace his steps, but the country went into a serious civil war, so it's out of bounds.
Wow.
Just beside me here is a box of letters from Queen Victoria. It's rather like the scene from Harry Potter where they all pour down the chimney. I mean, there's the abundance of historic material which is still here, not in a museum. It's quite extraordinary. So that's all available for the private tours for your guests to see when they come here. I give the tours myself, and they can last for up to 2 hours, which is quite exhausting. I see it rather like a performance at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. Every tour is different. And in fact, last year, we would have had, I think, 60 or 70 tours. They were all either cancelled or postponed because of the pandemic. But each one would have been different. So for me, it's quite a theatrical performance, how to bring history alive. I was really fascinated by the Crannog Storytelling Centre, which appeared in the last presentation, and what an impact that made on that particular family. I mean, I try and ensure that people who leave here leave with a sense that they've come to one of the most important experiences that are available in Scotland. It has to be memorable, more than anything. Vicky has brought many guests here. What was their reactions?
Yeah, no, they do. Actually, it's always I mean, it sounds like I would say that, but it's always a highlight, because I think a lot of visitors, they do the attractions, they do the usual sort of trundling around the big sites, and I think it's these things which are really just a bit different, like the Crannog, exactly like that really stick in their minds that other people haven't necessarily done. And I think when we bring people here, it's very easy to personalize it. And you won't remember this, but we had some golfers who came here, and obviously, you know, Scotland, the home of golf. And I said to Charles, we've got some golfers coming. Could you tell what stories or artifacts do we have in the house relating to golf? And you know, oh, that was one of the founding members of the Royal and Ancient, which is a really big deal. And I had no idea. You know, that's a really important sort of family connection. And you're just, yeah, founding member of the RNA, you know. So it's little things like that that always make me laugh. There's something that you can tweak to every group of guests. And Charles always makes a big effort to find out who the group are and what their interests are, what their backgrounds are, to sort of bring out certain things from the archives which are of relevance. And that, again, you know, it personalizes it. And that means a lot to people, because you don't just go around following a script. And, you know, although you say the word tour, it's not like it's a tour. It's part of a lunch or a dinner or afternoon tea.
It has to be a memorable experience.
It has to be really special.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it always is. We do, you know, whiskey tastings are a great thing to do here, because Charles's mother's great-grandfather was an usher, and they started up blended whiskey in Scotland.
They invented blended
whiskey. So there's all these just like endless connections right through the family, stretching back nearly 1,000 years. So it's, you know, it really is extraordinary.
I mean, the house is at the centre of a working estate, and our principal crop is spring barley, which is the most important ingredient for whiskey. And Vicky's husband, my brother, has his own distillery and has his bottling plant on the estate. So, I mean, theoretically, that's available to be seen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We can really bring whiskey to life with for the guests. And we had some Chinese guests here about 3 years ago, and the spring barley was just absolutely perfect, and it was a beautiful day. And they were wearing the Labutin shoes, which were worth thousands of pounds, and they went running through the fields and taking selfies and going, we're standing in fields of whiskey. And they came from Beijing, so they, you know, I think they were unaccustomed to fields of barley, which for us are just, you know, very everyday. But they were enchanted by this, standing in the field of barley, which is going to be turned into whiskey and then end up possibly in China. You know, it's funny what floats people's boats, but you know, it's a really interesting process to learn about what people are interested in, and then to turn that into a deliverable experience for them. So it's very much a learning curve.
We're able to connect with other contemporary things that are happening. Many people who come here have seen the Outlander series or Outlaw King. You probably saw the skull of King Robert the Bruce in the footage. And Downton Abbey, the movie. The original lunch for around which the plot was set was held here for the King and Queen. So, I mean, there are many aspects of popular culture that connect people with the United Kingdom that this house is very much a part of.
Mm.
And so it's very important that we would like people who are listening and looking at us today to know that this would be suitable for groups, for multi-gen, but also for a couple. You could bring a couple for lunch or for dinner, and the more information we have, the better Lord Bruce can tailor the visit if they have any particular interest. Wouldn't that be correct?
Absolutely. I put as much effort into entertaining a couple as for 200 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very important they leave with a very good impression.
Yeah. And we have done very small, and multi-gen families are, you know, it's much the same. In fact, I think
Actually, it's interesting you say that. But often a multi-generational family, they're very reluctant to acknowledge the fact they're bringing children, because they think that children are not going to be welcome.
not allowed.
Yeah. What I always ask is the age of the children, and the tour is directed at the age of the youngest child. So the adults are actually observing like that interaction.
That's quite unusual.
I have 5 children of my own, so I know how to speak to young children without them getting bored. If they get bored, then I've lost the plot. It hasn't worked. So that's another thing to remember.
But with a house with so many collection and artifacts, there must be something to interest everyone.
Absolutely, you've got it. Yeah.
When my children were small, there was a box in the corner of what were they were like beautiful building blocks, but I think they were part of the parquet flooring, were they?
No, it was the German battleships were broken up in the dockyard.
Oh.
They had fantastic teak decks, and they were made into building blocks.
Beautiful children's building blocks. There you go. Come from a German battleship. There, I didn't even know that. There you go.
So that's great. Just if anyone has any questions, we've answered questions about the distance from Edinburgh and the Goth, etc. But if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box. You know, and just remember that it isn't, you don't stay in the property, you visit it. And but Vicky, you can also work with us, you know, with Lord Bruce, maybe in other locations as well.
We do. We're quite a reactive company, and so we go where people, if people ask us to have dinner on top of Ben Nevis wearing elephant costumes, we try and make it happen. Why not? So yeah, people, and we have to really use our imaginations, because that's what people want now. So again, going back to John's point about the crannog, that's lovely, and that's not something that you're going to stumble across or find groups of other people doing. And it's really important for us to have these storytellers or you know, sort of private performances of fiddle players. We've had Scottish Highland dancers, country dancers here. We've actually had an Indian dance performance here. But these experiences can be held everywhere, anywhere. We've got beautiful grounds here, so whiskey tastings can be held outside. Clanadonia, the tribal drummers, pipers, whatever people are looking for. Falconry is a really popular one, and this is perfect for falconry.
And then there's a lot of questions coming in about actual, the history of Robert the Bruce. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that, maybe?
Well, we celebrated a very important event last year, which was the 700th anniversary of the Declaration of Arbroath, which is a letter which was sent to the Pope on behalf of Robert the Bruce, really to declare his legitimacy, upon which the American Declaration of Independence was based. This is what people think. So there's always something relevant that happens every year that commemorates the life of the king. He lived 700 years ago. And he, if you like, wrested Scotland from English domination and won a very important battle, the Battle of Bannockburn. But very little of his reign survives in a material sense. We have his sword and we have a cast of his skull, which you saw in the film footage.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when did Broomhall House become the family home?
Well, the family built the house in 1702, and then it was rebuilt entirely in 1766. Like this, and then again in 1798, which makes it contemporary with the White House, the President's Mansion.
Amazing.
And in fact, building materials from this estate were used to build the White House. The lime that they used to make the lime wash to paint it.
Amazing.
And all the masons came from Edinburgh.
Wow.
So it's another extraordinary, very tangible connection between this part of Scotland and the most important building in the United States.
Fantastic. So that's brilliant. So thank you very, very much. And so should we leave Scotland now, Gio, and head on to Devon?
Yes, I'm just going to show a little map.
We learned our lesson from last week, having no map. So we're prepared this time with a map.
So let me just share my screen. And now we're going to Devon. So if you see the map of the United Kingdom there, this is how far we are from London. I should put it this way. And we're going to Glazebrook House, and we're going to meet Peter.
And
so we'll just stop sharing here.
Before Peter just starts, what we have found in the past is it's quite a long way out if you're going with the driver guide to Devon and Cornwall, and you can go by the Isle of Wight, and there's lots of things to see on the way out. But sometimes people find they're sort of repeating themselves when they come back. So there is a little airport not far away, and now I would pronounce it Newquay, but I think it's pronounced locally Nookie or something like that.
Newquay is correct. Newquay is correct.
Newquay, and you could, now I'm hoping those flights are still there, but you can fly from there to Dublin, from there to Scotland, etc., and back to London if necessary, or you can get the train. So there's lots of different options with Devon and Cornwall, and we're really, really encouraging people. There's fantastic, other hotels out there if you wanted to add on a stay, when you're staying in Glazebrook as well. So, in Cornwall or in Somerset with the Newt in Somerset, that amazing sister property of Babylon Store in South Africa. So, Peter, over to you. Tell us all about Glazebrook.
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to be here today. It's a great pleasure for an ex-South African living in Devon, a bit of heaven in Devon, but to have this opportunity to introduce our property to you all. Just by way of introduction, you probably recognize from the spelling of my name that I'm not originally English, but in fact have Dutch heritage going back to the Netherlands, and family had been in South Africa for about 300 years when I decided to emigrate 40 years ago. And I emigrated at the time to the United States, of which I'm a citizen, and spent the last 20 years living in California. So I heard there were several Californians on the call tonight. I also worked, when I first emigrated there, went to New York City. I was involved in technology for the financial markets. That's been my background. And that took me to a number of places, major financial centers around the world. I always had an office in London for the 30 years I was involved in that business, as well as working in Hong Kong for 8 years, where I met my good wife, and her name's Fran. So my attachments back to the US are very, very strong. Having lived in New Jersey and in Connecticut while working in New York City, And as I said, 20 years out in California, Northern California, San Francisco, and a son living down in Southern California in LA right now. So still very connected to that part of the world. My wife she's basically a professional sourcer. When I say a sourcer, she sources furniture. So her primary business is high-end home furnishings. And that has been her bent. She worked for a company, and the people from the US may be familiar with this home furnishing company called Restoration Hardware, now called RH. They're a very high-end home furnishing retailer, about a $3 billion company. And Fran, my wife, was head of global sourcing, sourcing all of the items from all over the world. So as a result of that, we've met a number of designers and people involved in furnishings, etc., and one of whom has been very instrumental in Glazebrook, and in fact did the entire interior design. He's a Mancunian, and his name is Timothy Alton, O-U-L-T-O-N, lives in China now, and his company now is about $1 billion worldwide. He has several retail stores, but mainly he supplies to the trade. So that's just by way of background. When we decided to come to England, and that's another question I'm sure people are asking, is what on earth brought you to Devon? Well, basically my wife's family are originally from Liverpool, so she has the English connection. We had met in Hong Kong, and then she came over to the States, but wanted to go back to SA to be with her children. We said, didn't want to do that given all the problems down there, unfortunately. So her children had said, don't come back, we're going to move to the UK where we have ancestral visa rights. Hence, I'm looking for a place in the UK. I'd always wanted to be a hotelier. It had always been a passion of mine. My dad had hotels when I grew up in South Africa, and I'd cut my teeth on some of them. So, so this lent us, to the opportunity of having our own place. So we started looking. We found Glazebrook in Devon. Absolutely loved the property. It is a 19th century manor house. That had been built around a 1650s farmhouse. So perhaps not as grand as the one we've just seen up in Fife, but very similar to John's property. Actually, we have 9 bedrooms, and so quite contained, about the same acreage as John has. We have just under 4 acres of property. So what I thought I'd do first off was just let's kick off with the video, which shows you when we did the remodel 7 years ago. We were in the process of doing it when we filmed this video. So if I can ask Gio to show.
Can I ask just a question before you start there, Gio? Peter, you are a hotel, but also an exclusive use, because we're using you at the moment for a client for exclusive use, but you do both, don't you?
Yeah. Yes, we are. Yeah. We're a boutique hotel. So given the size that we are, we sleep at the moment 15, because my wife and I are actually living on the property ourselves. So we are using one of our suites, but we sleep 15. We do a lot of exclusive use for family milestone events, for weddings, for major celebrations, for corporate sales activities, kind of incentive campaigns, things of that nature that people can fly in down to. Exeter is our nearest airport. Actually, you mentioned Newquay, but Exeter is only about 35 minutes away. And Range Rover have a big facility there, and I have an agreement with them that they will pick up guests at Exeter Airport, drive them down in a fleet of Range Rovers, should they want to do that. Alternatively, they can come by train. Our nearest train station is about 10 minutes away in a place called Totnes, and I'll show you on the map when we get a...
And how far are you from Bristol Airport?
We're an hour and a half from Bristol.
So it's not far either. Like Bristol is brilliant for doing, other things, and Bath and things like that. So there's so many options, really.
Yeah, Newquay is probably where they'll have a lot of flights for the G7 meeting down in Cornwall coming up in July. So there will be quite a lot of activity, I think, flying into Newquay, as well as Exeter. And either way, you come straight past, well, not if you're flying to Newquay, but Exeter, certainly you'd come past Glazebrook on your way down. And for Americans, a very interesting thing is we've just had the 400th anniversary of the sailing of the Mayflower. And the steps of the Mayflower in Plymouth, which is about 20 minutes from here. And so a lot of interest in from Americans visiting this region because of the connections back to the Mayflower.
Brilliant. So on to the video, Gio. Thank you.
when you go in, you have no idea what you're going to walk into. You're not prepared for that.
As I started driving down the driveway, my heart started beating. It was like, oh my God, this just feels so wonderful. Actually, that's where it all started. I said, I feel like Alice in Wonderland. They don't know the entire story, they've heard of Alice in Wonderland.
Each room you go into, there's something new to discover and something new to experience and see. So by the end of it, you really feel like you've gone through a whole little world. You've been able to escape into something very magical.
We want people to really experience that feeling of homeliness, of being comfortable here, and yet being in a place of difference.
It's definitely not conventional. It looks like a really hip London hotel that's been put into a beautiful garden.
We've tried really hard to recreate the atmosphere inside a 19th century collector's house.
Every corner there's something exciting.
A fantasy, a place where people can escape. Somewhere where people can have a unique experience.
Glazebrook is an amazing place. It was built originally in 1650, and it has this lovely, warm feeling.
In every corner you go around, there's just a different aspect, something more creative and playful that you get to discover.
Vintage makes all the difference. It brings everything to life. There are almost 900 different vintage pieces. People see things that they recognise, and it makes them happy.
It's more nostalgic, isn't it? It's more brings a smile to your mouth. It's more playful. It's not too serious.
We have found Timothy Alton, love his designs, think that it's a great way to kind of make the place very contemporary, yet retain that classical feel that people are looking for.
Everything in the hotel has come from Timothy Alton's manufacturing workshops in China.
We have so many products, like 482 pieces, and I have to go to UK to supervise the work. This is my first time working overseas, and it's so exciting.
The company has fantastic resources in China and the ability to do things that are just not possible elsewhere. We have specialists in wood, stone, furniture making, upholstery, lighting, so many areas that we can pull together in a project like this.
Suddenly it sort of came alive in front of my eyes. It took on a life of its own.
The gardens were created and established well over 200 years ago.
This garden that was just magical. Magical is all I can say. Just wanted to skip. I just felt alive. I felt wonderful.
It's not about the quality of food you serve, and that's a given. It's how you serve it and with what intent you want to serve it. That's what good hosting is to me. You want to know who that person is, and you want them to know who we are. Quickly. We've got one night to do it.
Thank you, Gio. Thanks for showing me that. Now, what I'd like to do is just briefly go through a little presentation that I put together a year ago, in fact, and I've just taken some elements of those slides because it relates back to the house and why we do what we do. And fortunately, we've been very, very lucky in winning a number of awards. We've won Best Small Property by Condé Nast for the whole of the UK and Ireland. We've won the Visit England Hotel of the Year in our category, in the small category, and got the Certificate of Excellence. And we have had numerous awards as well for our restaurant. So we do offer a restaurant we're known as a celebratory venue across our region. That's really the way we've evolved. It wasn't planned. It literally took a life of its own and kind of grew by itself. Next slide, please. I wonder if we can get this any larger. I just wanted to show you a little bit about where we are geographically, because when I first came to the UK, I knew very little, or not to the UK, but to actually live here. I'd been to London many, many, many times over 30 years, but never really ventured out into the kind of other areas of the UK, which I think most Americans generally don't do. They tend to stick around the big cities and do what there's so much to see and do there. But so the only thing I knew about Devon was that Devon was a place you pass through on the way to Cornwall. What I hadn't realized was the extent of the size of Devon. And what this little map shows you is the beige area is Devon. The green with the orange circle around is the national park called Dartmoor National Park. The little red circle in that orange circle is where the hotel's located. And the blue area that you can, the kind of blue circle going around the edge there, those are beaches that are just all within 30 minutes of Glazebrook and well worth visiting. A lot have historical significance. We've got a place called Slapton, which is near Salcombe. Now, Salcombe is right down there. You go. Thanks very much. You're getting there. We are. Salcombe basically is where the D-Day landings were set from, or where they started out. And the American Navy did a lot of practicing together with the British at a place called Slapton, which is right next to Salcombe, and again of great historical interest to the folks who come down here. Dartmoor National Park is really worth talking about for those who are not familiar with national parks in the United Kingdom. Unlike the US, this country had no national parks until after the Second World War, I believe. And at that point, up to that point, most of the large land areas were owned by aristocracy. And in fact, the Prince Charles and Camilla, the Duchy of Cornwall still owns large tracts of Dartmoor and leases it basically to the country. Unlike the US national parks, there is habitation within the park. So there are several towns and villages known as settlements. And these are funded basically by the UK government also to try and help them retain their initial character or the original character. As you can see, we are right in the national park. Now, accessibility for us was an issue because I wanted to make sure when we did buy, we bought where it was easy to get to, because a lot of parts of the countryside are difficult and quite inaccessible with lots of country lanes and so on. However, we are basically on the A38, which is an extension of the M5 motorway, which is a major arterial that runs north to south in England. And then it becomes the A38 and goes down into Cornwall. So we are literally 20 minutes from Plymouth, which you can see on the left-hand side of the circle there. There we go. And so I said the Mayflower and the destination Plymouth is an interesting organization. They do a lot of hosting of tours and walking tours and so forth. So lots to do. But the Dartmoor National Park is the largest expanse of parkland in the Southwest. It's about 350 square miles. To put things in perspective, the population of Devon is about 1.2 million, so not overly populated. And the area that we're in, this southern area, is known as the South Hams and an area of natural outstanding beauty, or outstanding natural beauty. So it's a gorgeous place to visit, tons of hamlets, lots of history. We've got the port of Brixham, which is the largest fishing port in England. So our local access to local produce is phenomenal, and it's really the breadbasket, I think, of the Southwest. Great foods, great meats and fish, etc. Right, next slide, please. Right, so again, just talking a little bit about Dartmoor. Dartmoor is fascinating from a mining perspective. It's mined tin during the medieval period. It's mined copper. It's currently mining uranium. It basically has large deposits of clay for making china. So they do china clay mining. So it's been inhabited for somewhere between 30 and 40,000 years. There have been people living there. So it goes back to the Bronze Age. We do walking tours for our guests of Dartmoor at night and during the day, take them to the old tin mining areas where they can actually see what was done during that time. Next slide, please. So looking at Glazebrook specifically, I've just brought this slide up because it shows you a little bit about what a lot of country homes looked like and still do look like in England today. As you can see, it was a beautiful building, but the interior was really tired and boring, very much like a traditional B&B, almost like a care home, in fact. So there was no differentiation to the product. It was really, they only provided resident dining. They didn't invite people in to come and experience the place. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to really change it around and be able to be a draw card. Next slide, please. So basically what people are looking for, and I think this has been covered by John and other speakers about what people are looking for is something unique and special. People are looking for that experience today. They want something they can take away with them when they leave and know that they've actually really gotten something that not everyone would be able to obtain. They also want to be known for who they are. So they want to be recognized. They don't want to just be a number, as I think we all feel that way. And so they really relish the one-on-one action and the creation of these special memories that one can do. My belief is also spoiling indulgences are really important. So we do, within our bedrooms, all of our mini bars are complimentary. I put in candy baskets and we put in a couple of beers, some wine, and people don't have to worry about how much it's going to cost them should they enjoy that. Next slide, please. So basically, how did we set ourselves apart essentially, and how do we do that in a market that's very crowded down here? There's no shortage of hotels. Country hotels, there are plenty. They are and tend to be much more traditional than we are. So what we've done is try to create excitement in every room. So all of our 9 bedrooms are differently decorated. They're all en suite. They all have some common features, the armoire and so on. But one of the other things you may have seen, we've been up in Scotland, they all have tartan carpets, which we have throughout the house. We found a wonderful carpet manufacturer from Scotland. So they produced that for us. So when I came up with what I wanted Glazebrook to be, it really was a place of connectivity I wanted to create where people could come together, but also the ethos I wanted was surprise, delight, and enrich. And the enrichment portion of that was to give them experiences in the food area and the drink area where they could learn something and try something different. As a result, I built a tasting room, as you can see it in the picture there with the boxer. The cabinet on the right, for those up in Scotland, would glad to know they're all whiskies, all single malt Scotch whiskies and Irish whiskies, and I do the whiskey tastings. It's one of my really fun projects that I do here. And then we have extensive wine. There's 72 bins of wines from all over the world. I've worked with top sommeliers in creating those. And so we do wine tastings, bespoke wine tastings, pre-dinner or for groups as well. So let's go to the next slide, please. So looking at some other things, we've got a wonderful eat-in kitchen, as you can see there. We do tasting menus, and the chef comes out from the commercial kitchen, which is right behind, to present the foods and explain, and they're all sourced within 30 to 50 miles of Glazebrook. As I said, we're in a very food-rich area of the country, so only fresh produce is produced for our 3 menus, 3 meals a day. We also do extensive afternoon teas, and we've put in some igloos with COVID. We've now got igloos in our gardens that people can go and enjoy their afternoon tea or cream teas and be socially distanced. The picture below is our dining room. As you can see, the house and the ethos that they used was a 19th century collector's home was the principal design factors that they used there. You can see the blue plates on the walls. We have silver Sunday salvers on the other wall. So wherever you look in Glazebrook, there are collections of different items.
Peter, can I ask you, there's questions coming in, and we minimum night stay, so I said it's a hotel as well, so there's no minimum night stay, but what about seasonality? Because with COVID now, some people have changed their opening time. So do you want to just mention what seasons or months you're open?
We're open all year round. At the moment, we are open whenever we're allowed to be open, we're open.
Fantastic. And can you stop? The other thing they want to ask is, can you stop there just for a high tea if necessary?
Yes, you may. We do that very often. We'll have people, especially FIT groups, small tour groups coming down to Cornwall, going to the Eden Project, passing through this way that we will host for afternoon teas and for cream teas.
And sorry, there was another question. Just I'm trying to think of all the questions. Why the Alice in Wonderland theme?
Okay, well, it never started out that way at all. The Alice in Wonderland component came about when I was desperate to what I was going to call the rooms. I didn't want a numbering convention, so I was during the remodel kept thinking about flowers and kind of counties and names of things of people of interest for British people, and nothing resonated with me at all until my daughter turned 30 and was here from San Francisco with my son. We went out to dinner and I said to them, guys, you have to help me tonight. I have to name these rooms. It was 6 weeks before the furniture was due to arrive. And my son, after about a few minutes, said to me, gee, Dad, didn't Fran, that's my wife, didn't she say she felt like Alice in Wonderland when she first saw the gardens? And I said, that's it. And it was like 19th century British eccentricity. It all linked together. And I just named the rooms. I said, get me the characters of Alice in Wonderland. And in 10 minutes, I named the rooms. And it just worked. And people love it. I think if we'd started out as a themed hotel, it would have been very different, but we're not that. They just are surprises and little elements around that make you just feel like you're in a bit of a magical place.
A lot of people are mentioning, well, not a lot, but some people are mentioning about, be great for, say, a murder weekend or whatever, because I know that one of the themes or the interest we have for clients visiting those areas of, like, I always sort of, if you're coming from America or from Canada or from South America, etc., people tend to do more than just one county, so sort of like Devon and Cornwall together, but we often include an Agatha Christie places of interest. So are there any other literary themes or any other themes in the area?
Yes, the Hounds of the Baskerville. I don't know if you know Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes. So he basically wrote Hounds of the Baskerville on Dartmoor. It's a very kind of interesting, gloomy, dark kind of book, but very, very exciting. And that's set in Dartmoor and in a town called Princeton, when you may have heard of the Princeton jail, which is quite famous during the Napoleonic Wars. That's where they housed the soldiers that they captured, and they built a lot of the walls that are around there and so forth. So we have a local guided tours that do Hounds of the Baskerville or Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie did most of her writing on the Dart River at a place called Greenways. So not too far from Totnes, which is our closest train station. It's about 2.5 hours from London by train to Totnes. And that's where Inspector Poirot, her character, used to take the train to Totnes. So you can visit her with National Trust property, Greenways. There are fabulous other properties. Dartmouth is a wonderful town. And that's where the Naval College is, similar to West Point. So when I first started the hotel, people would call up and say, we love the look of it. What do we do when we get there? So I've created 8 days of itinerary for people to do on a daily basis. Some of those are within walking distance because you can walk straight onto Dartmoor. Wonderful walks every day. And otherwise it's about 20 to 30 minutes to a variety of beaches, the South Coast Coastal Path, which goes right around the southern end of England. So just tons of things to do and see.
Lots of art galleries, because people don't realize lots of those little hamlets and villages you're talking about, they have amazing art galleries.
Wonderful, really, really wonderful, wonderful artworks, yes. So there's absolutely no shortage of things to do when you're here. We try to make sure that people, when they're here for a weekend, we give them the wine tastings, we give them the whiskey tastings, we do the walking tours on the moor, we give them afternoon teas. So there's always something to be done. And we tailor to try and give people that special experience that's typically British and in a house that has a lot of history around it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Peter. So we're welcoming back our other presenters, John, Lord Bruce, and Vicky. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, God, I can't believe we so many people on the call and there's still so many people left. So thank you all for staying with us. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box or unmute yourself. And thanks a million to John as well, and to Lord Bruce and to Vicky for presenting. We really do appreciate it. It's great when we can, bring the experience, not just look at cold pictures of a hotel, but bring the real people in. Because like the one thing we know in Adams and Butler is that our clients love engaging with real people, and they love meeting the owners, because then they get an idea of the values and the ethos of the property as well, and the personality of the property or the experiences. Nolan, can the lodge be booked independently of the main house once it opens? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's John here. Yeah, happy to answer that. The answer is yes. We will have a separate entrance to the lodge, and so they both have their privacy and exclusivity, so they can be booked separately or together.
And thanks a million, John. And then is there a horse riding nearby? And I don't know who that was directed to, but I'm assuming in all cases there is.
Certainly in Glazebrook there is, yes. We've got an equestrian centre very close to us.
Okay, and John, the same with you. And then the other thing is, sorry, just...
That's the question about the connection of the Bruce, if there is a connection with curling.
Interesting.
A huge connection. Who asked that and how did you know?
I'm glad they asked, because we didn't know, and it's something we can add. So I'm trying to see who asked that, Gio, because my computer is smaller.
Let me see.
I'm very intrigued because there's a huge connection with curling, or maybe you're just asking because it's a Scottish pastime. I don't know, but yeah, there's a massive connection.
What is the connection, Vicky?
We've got the Broomhall Curling Club.
Oh wow, okay.
And my parents-in-law have sort of gone to Canada and things to partake. There's a great Charles didn't sort of mention this. He's had to go and say happy birthday to his father, who's the Earl of Elgin, and he's 97 today. So he's just nipped out to say happy birthday. Because you mentioned there were some Canadians on the call, the Elgin County and the Elgin Regiment in Canada. My father-in-law's great-grandfather was the Governor General of Canada. So there's a really, really strong relationship with Canada and the family. And actually the Elgin Regiment come here every year for dinner.
Wow. And it's actually Susan from Ohio, and she said there was a connection. I think her husband was from Scotland and he does curling. But I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were explaining to people about where the stones were, because we had Glenap on as well. Glenap. And, we were showing them where the stones are taken from, etc. So
they're cut from Arran, the Isle of Arran, which is across the water from Glenap. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. So I think really that's it. I must say thank you to our presenters for joining us. We really do appreciate it, because like Adams and Butler are only as good as the people we work with. So, our partners are an extension of ourselves, and, they spoil your clients when they visit. So we really do appreciate our partners and what they do.
Well, thank you, Siobhan. Really appreciate being here.
Likewise, thank you for letting us speak to everybody. It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great because it gives people a real in-depth, idea of what's available. So I think we leave it there, Gio. What do you think?
Yes, if anyone got any last-minute questions, otherwise I think we've gone through everyone.
Brilliant. And just to say, someone's saying Sláinte. I love when people do that. It's very funny. I was in Kenya, and I was teaching them the difference between Irish and Scottish, because you say féilte and we say fáilte, isn't it? You say féilte.
Yeah.
And we say fáilte. So I was teaching them the difference. And one of the girls, the manager of the property, the owner of the property was actually Scottish. So she was writing little expressions in, Scottish Gaelic to her. And just next week, then we're back in Northern Ireland, and we're going this side onto the east side of Northern Ireland. And we'll be meeting, oh my God, Gio, help me out here. We're going to Ballywalter to meet Brian and Leith. And then we are also in Grey Abbey with the Montgomerys. Nice. And then we have an amazing guide that, and that's not Titanic as such, but it's an amazing guide who brings our clients into the Titanic, and she just absolutely knows everything. Possibly Hammy as well. And then help me out here.
Going the Giant's Causeway and the Carrick Bridge from underneath, so that's
the Aquaholics.
a different view as well.
The Aquaholics, I love that word. So they'll be fantastic. So again, looking forward to seeing you all next Wednesday at 5 o'clock Irish time, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and 9 a.m. for those very lovely people who join us every year from the West as well, the West of North America, and for everyone in South America and Canada as well. Thank you for joining us, and in Europe. So see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Siobhan.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.